y'all saying my name, put some respect on it. Put some respect on my name. You understand me? And y'all saying my name, put some respect on it.
Remi Djalis with Black Diaspora News and Music Entertainment. From the Netherlands UPE. OAS renews commitment to international election observation standards. Source: Caribbean News Global. Date: December 12, 2025. The General Secretariat of the Organization of American States, OAS, has formally renewed its commitment to the Declaration of Principles for International Election Observation, exactly 20 years after the landmark instrument was adopted. The reaffirmation took place during the annual meeting on the Declaration, held from December 8 to December 12 in Geneva, Switzerland. The gathering was hosted by the United Nations Electoral Assistance Division and brought together representatives from intergovernmental organizations and international non-governmental institutions specializing in election monitoring. Participants used the meeting to evaluate the progress achieved over the past 2 decades and to stress the ongoing importance of credible, professional, and independent election observation worldwide. The discussions highlighted the necessity of maintaining rigorous standards at a time when democratic institutions in many regions are facing rising pressures, including disinformation, polarization, and decreasing public trust. Gerardo Di Casa, director of the OAS Department for Electoral Cooperation and Observation, DECO, spoke on several panels addressing the continued relevance of the Declaration of Principles in the Americas. His contributions focused on both the successes of OAS electoral observation missions, EOMs, and the challenges they encounter, particularly in environments where political tensions threaten the integrity of electoral processes. Meanwhile, Brenda Santamaria, head of the Electoral Observation Section of DECO/OAS, presented the organization's methodology for monitoring women's political participation. She emphasized the importance of gender-focused approaches to election observation, noting that equitable representation remains a core component of democratic participation. Her presentation demonstrated how OAS missions collect data, evaluate conditions, and issue recommendations aimed at increasing women's access to political power. During the meeting, attendees reached a major decision. In the year 2026, the OAS will take full responsibility for organizing and coordinating the next implementation meeting of the Declaration of Principles for International Election Observation. This event will be hosted through DECO and will allow the OAS to lead discussions on how to advance electoral transparency, strengthen integrity, and modernize observation practices in response to emerging global challenges. The OAS Secretary General Albert R. Ramden issued a statement reaffirming the organization's commitment to democratic governance across the hemisphere. He highlighted that OAS electoral observation missions are a reflection of the values embedded in the Inter-American Democratic Charter and play a critical role in safeguarding democratic institutions. Ramden noted that hosting the 2026 annual meeting will be especially meaningful because it will coincide with the 25th anniversary of the Inter-American Democratic Charter, an important milestone in the region's ongoing commitment to democratic norms and practices. He emphasized that the OAS remains dedicated to strengthening electoral integrity and supporting member states in ensuring free, fair, and transparent elections. The renewed commitment by the OAS signals not only a reinforcement of long-standing principles, but also an acknowledgement of the evolving challenges facing democracies throughout the Americas. Through continuous collaboration, updated methodologies, and a firm adherence to international standards, the organization aims to continue playing a central role in protecting the legitimacy of elections across the region. My next news is, NATO Chief Mark Rutte warns Europe about impending Russian threat. Source: VRT NWS broadcast. The VRT NWS segment focuses on a stark and unusually direct warning delivered by NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte. His message is clear and unsettling. Europe may be Russia's next target, and European nations must urgently rebuild their military capabilities before it is too late. The program includes comments from military officials, geopolitical analysts, and the Belgian Minister of Defense, forming a comprehensive discussion on the present security landscape. Mark Rutte begins by stressing that too many people in Europe are complacent and underestimate the seriousness of the moment. He cites estimates that Russia has lost on average roughly 1,200 troops per day this year, and that the country has suffered more than 1 million casualties since the full-scale invasion of Ukraine began. Despite those losses, Rutte warns that Russia's economy is fully geared toward war, spending roughly 40% of its national budget on the military. He highlights that nearly all machine tools in Russia are now used for defense production. According to Ruda, Russia could realistically be ready to challenge NATO militarily within approximately 5 years. He identifies China as Russia's lifeline, explaining that Chinese support is essential for Russia to maintain its war effort. Without China, Russia's ability to sustain the conflict would be significantly reduced. This linkage, Ruda argues, shows the broader geopolitical stakes and the need for Europe to take responsibility for its own defense, rather than assuming the United States will always fill the gaps. The broadcast continues with military expert Major General Gert van Godem, Belgium's military representative to NATO. Van Godem confirms the seriousness of Ruda's remarks, emphasizing that Europe must rebuild its military forces urgently if it wishes to deter Russia. He argues that the objective is not to wage war, but to prevent it by demonstrating overwhelming strength. However, he also acknowledges that rebuilding Europe's military capacity is progressing too slowly. A significant part of the discussion revolves around the United States. While some Europeans fear that Donald Trump may withdraw support for NATO or shift focus entirely to domestic interests, Van Godem explains that American military colleagues repeatedly assure him that their commitment to NATO remains ironclad in the event of a conflict with Russia. The complication, however, is strategic. The United States wants to redirect more of its global military resources toward countering China, which means Europe must fill more of the security vacuum in its own region. The broadcast also features geopolitical analyst Björn Sonens, who highlights that Americans do not feel the Russian threat as directly as Europeans do. Public support for Ukraine has declined as Donald Trump argues that the United States spends too much money on a conflict far from home. Meanwhile, confusion in American foreign policy makes Europe uncertain about what to expect. Belgian Defense Minister Theo Franken adds that Europe must scale up defense production dramatically. Unlike during the First and Second World Wars, Europe today does not control the global supply chains for critical raw materials, making rapid mobilization harder. The discussion ends by reaffirming that NATO remains strong, but Europe must urgently close the gaps in its collective defense if it wishes to deter future aggression. My next news is online report of Candace Owens' commentary on Erica Kirk and the conspiracy theorists. Source: Candace, episode 278. The episode opens with Candace Owens reflecting on her initial hesitation to judge Erica Kirk, the widow of the late Charlie Kirk, who was assassinated in September 2025. Candace explains that many people rushed to assumptions about Erica immediately after Charlie's death, but she preferred to wait for more public statements from Erica before forming her own conclusion. In this episode, Erica finally steps forward for multiple media interviews, including a widely discussed appearance with Harris Faulkner on Fox News, and Candace uses these interviews to evaluate Erica's intentions as the new chairwoman and chief executive officer of Turning Point USA. The first major section of the episode focuses on Erica's emotional response when questioned about ongoing allegations regarding Charlie's burial. Candace plays a clip in which Harris Faulkner asks Erica about claims circulating online that Charlie had not yet been buried. Erica tearfully insists that she wants one sacred thing for her family: the privacy of Charlie's resting place, so that his grave is not disturbed by people she calls secular revolutionaries. Candace acknowledges that the desire for burial privacy is understandable. However, she highlights a contradiction. Erica previously chose to publicly share extremely intimate footage of herself grieving over Charlie's casket on social media. For Candace, this contradiction creates what she calls Meghan Markle syndrome, the idea of demanding total privacy at some moments while seeking complete publicity at others. The second section addresses Erica's emotional defense of the Turning Point USA staff. Erica insists that the organization is her family, and argues that critics attacking its employees are exploiting tragedy for profit. Candace challenges this argument, pointing out verifiable inconsistencies and lies from within Turning Point USA's ranks following Charlie's death. She also argues that Erica's claim about having no time to respond to critics is contradicted by her extensive media appearances, such as interviews with Sean Hannity, Fox and Friends, Megyn Kelly, and the New York Times, along with a coast-to-coast trip to attend an unrelated diplomatic swearing-in ceremony. Candace concludes that the issue is not time but priority. The final section of the episode explores the broader question of leadership. Candace argues that Erica's emotional responses are incompatible with the role of Chief Executive Officer. She emphasizes that a CEO must compartmentalize emotions and address valid questions directly, especially those concerning finances, internal misconduct, and unexplained actions surrounding Charlie's death. Candace states that love for a deceased husband does not automatically qualify someone to manage a massive multimillion-dollar organization. In her view, Erica continues to respond like a grieving spouse rather than a corporate leader responsible for transparency. Overall, the episode raises questions about authenticity, accountability, and the blurred lines between personal tragedy and political power. Candace ultimately concludes that Erica Kirk's media tour does not clarify the mysteries surrounding Charlie Kirk's assassination, but instead amplifies doubts about Turning Point USA's leadership and credibility. My next news is Candace Owens' podcast, episode 279. The discussion centers on the aftermath of Charlie Kirk's assassination and the controversy surrounding Tyler Robinson's involvement. The episode presents a highly personal and emotional reaction to what Owens and her desk perceive as a large-scale propaganda and PR campaign surrounding the case. Owens emphasizes her frustration with the way media outlets and certain public figures allegedly promote a one-sided narrative, portraying any questioning of Charlie Kirk or his associates as inappropriate or disrespectful toward the bereaved. The main theme of this episode is distrust toward official statements and media coverage. Owens argues that public accounts of the events are often contradictory and, in some instances, implausible. She highlights the claim that a bullet was stopped by Charlie Kirk's neck with minimal damage as an example, stating that such a scenario defies common sense. Owens asserts that the public should not feel compelled to accept these narratives, even when emotional pressure is applied by figures such as Erica Kirk, Charlie's widow. She encourages critical thinking and independent judgment, advocating for the right to question the story without being accused of disrespect or malice. Owens also explores the role of PR and controlled media appearances. She points out that Erica Kirk's interviews are carefully scripted, with questions pre-selected by media outlets like CBS. According to Owens, this makes the conversations feel inauthentic, as responses are rehearsed and designed to control public perception. Owens expresses concern that this approach prioritizes optics over truth and transparency, creating a managed narrative rather than an open investigation into the events of September 10th. Furthermore, the podcast examines the inconsistencies and alleged falsehoods disseminated by organizations such as Turning Point USA. Owens criticizes multiple figures for spreading misleading information about the circumstances of Charlie Kirk's death, the actions of Tyler Robinson, and other key events. She emphasizes that she is committed to factual accuracy and transparency, highlighting that her critiques focus on verifiable lies rather than speculation or personal attacks. Owens frames her work as a defense of truth against the emotional manipulation and elite-driven messaging that she perceives in media coverage. Another key point in the episode is the tension between public perception and elite influence. Owens describes how wealth, social status, and connections are used to shape narratives and suppress dissenting viewpoints. She argues that ordinary people are often pressured to accept stories that conflict with their instincts or common sense, creating a mass formation dynamic where questioning authority is framed as morally or socially wrong. Overall, the episode is both a critique of media manipulation and a call for independent thought. Owens challenges listeners to question official accounts, scrutinize PR strategies, and prioritize factual evidence over emotional appeals. Her argument underscores the importance of critical thinking in the face of controlled narratives, particularly when powerful individuals or organizations seek to influence public perception. My next news is Source, Morris World TV, George Macon exposed. Pan-African turned FBA. Sold his soul to Tariq Nasr and turned into a pick-me. The video from Morris World TV features a long, highly energetic commentary aimed at exposing what the host describes as a disturbing trend among some former Pan-African commentators who have recently aligned themselves with the Foundational Black American, or FBA, movement. The central figure examined in this episode is George Macon, whom the host accuses of abandoning his earlier Pan-African commitments in favor of supporting the ideology and personality of Tariq Nasr. Throughout the broadcast, the host frames this ideological shift as both hypocritical and harmful, emphasizing how Macon's behavior resembles that of a pygmy, someone vying for approval from a more dominant figure or group. The first portion of the video consists of the host warming up the audience, using humor, music, and call-and-response interaction. This establishes a lively, communal tone before transitioning into critique. The host repeatedly describes FBA as a nothing burger, comparing it to cheap, unhealthy instant noodles, suggesting that it offers no intellectual or cultural nourishment. According to the host, FBA is not a legitimate lineage or serious political movement but a shallow, recently invented identity dating back only a few years. This strong opinion sets the foundation for the criticisms that follow. The host then praises certain scholars and content creators, such as Dr. Mayat, Dr. Assad, and Q Butter, for engaging in more vigorous discussions around African history, lineage, and identity. This praise is contrasted sharply with criticism of FBA-aligned speakers whom the host describes as unserious, ill-informed, and eager to defend Tariq Nasr rather than engage in genuine scholarship. The host claims that many FBA supporters exhibit emotional immaturity, often reacting with laughter, deflection, or rehearsed talking points instead of evidence-based arguments. When discussing George Macon specifically, the host expresses disappointment rather than hatred. He states clearly that Macon is still my brother, but his actions must be confronted. According to the host, Macon once appeared thoughtful and independent, but now behaves like an apologist or attorney for Tariq Nasr, defending Nasr personally rather than addressing broader political arguments. The host argues that this shift demonstrates a desire for acceptance within the FBA circle, reducing Macon to what he repeatedly calls a pygmy, someone begging to be chosen or validated. The broadcast also touches on wider issues such as the historical identity of African people, the misuse of pseudo-scholarship, and the dangers of elevating personalities over principles. The host warns that abandoning African identity in favor of narrow online movements inadvertently aligns with the agenda of colonizers, who historically tried to erase African origins. Thus, he frames the FBA rejection of African identity as both historically inaccurate and politically dangerous. Overall, the video is a passionate critique of ideological inconsistency and performative loyalty within Black political spaces. It challenges viewers to evaluate leaders not through cults of personality, but through historical accuracy, consistent principles, and genuine commitment to African heritage. My next news is The Curse of Ham and the Southern Baptist Convention. Source: NYTN, YouTube channel. The Curse of Ham and the Southern Baptist Convention. The video The Curse of Ham and the Southern Baptist Convention, by NYTN, presented by Daniel Romero, explores the historical misuse of the biblical story of Ham to justify slavery and racial segregation in the United States. The so-called Curse of Ham has been interpreted by some to mean that God condemned all Black people to a life of servitude. Romero explains that this interpretation is entirely false and has been deliberately manipulated over centuries to support economic and social systems based on racial hierarchy. The biblical story in Genesis 9 recounts that Noah, after the flood, planted a vineyard, drank wine, and became drunk, lying naked in his tent. Ham, one of his sons, saw him naked and told his brothers Shem and Japheth, who respectfully covered Noah without looking. When Noah awoke, he cursed Canaan, Ham's son, to be a servant of servants to his brothers. Importantly, the Bible mentions only Canaan, not Ham or all Black people. It does not reference skin color or race. Despite this, centuries of misinterpretation twisted the story into a theological justification for slavery. Romero highlights how, beginning in the 17th century, Christian leaders in America faced an economy dependent on slavery and sought a religious rationale to legitimize it. They shifted the curse from Canaan to all of Ham's supposed descendants, linking it to African people and conflating geography with race. This interpretation ignored biblical context and contradicted other Christian authorities who condemned slavery. Theologians like Richard Baxter and Cotton Mather rejected the Curse of Ham argument, emphasizing that enslaving people based on skin color was morally and spiritually wrong. However, the Southern Baptist Convention, founded in 1845 to defend slavery, perpetuated this misinterpretation, teaching it in seminaries, pulpits, and Sunday schools. Romero illustrates the lasting impact of these ideas with the story of a woman she calls Sarah. Raised in a white community in Mississippi, Sarah believed she had no African ancestry. After taking a DNA test, she discovered she had 12% West African ancestry. Her story demonstrates how these racial categories, once considered divinely ordained, were socially constructed and maintained through fear, secrecy, and misinterpreted theology. The video also contrasts the misuse of the Old Testament with the message of the New Testament. The book of Acts shows God uniting people from every nation under heaven through the gift of the Holy Spirit, while Galatians 3 verse 28 emphasizes that divisions of race, status, and gender are overcome in Christ. Thus, the biblical narrative actually supports unity, not separation. Modern genetics further confirms that race, as understood in America, has no basis in DNA. All humans share a common ancestry. In conclusion, Romero argues that the curse of Ham was never about God's will but about human manipulation to justify slavery and segregation. While the Southern Baptist Convention has issued apologies for its past, the underlying theology that supported racial discrimination persists in some forms. The video encourages viewers to read Scripture critically and understand that God's intention is unity rather than division. My next news is Virginia's Racial Integrity Act and the Pocahontas exception. The video This Document Turned 10,000 Native Americans into Colored by NYTN explores the disturbing history of racial classification in Virginia and the impact of the 1924 Racial Integrity Act. Daniel Romero explains how the law, designed to enforce strict racial purity, systematically reclassified thousands of Native Americans as colored, effectively erasing their legal and social identity. The video focuses on the Pocahontas exception, a provision that allowed wealthy white families to claim Native American ancestry and maintain their white status, highlighting the racial and social inequalities embedded in the law. Romero begins by explaining that the Racial Integrity Act required anyone with even a single drop of non-white blood, going back at least 5 generations, to be legally classified as non-white. However, wealthy families who could trace their ancestry to Pocahontas, the historical figure who married English settler John Rolfe, were allowed to remain white. This loophole, known as the Pocahontas exception, protected Virginia's elite families, such as the Randolphs and Boleyns, ensuring they could keep their social privileges, property, and access to schools and hospitals. In contrast, Native Americans with documented tribal connections and community ties were often reclassified as colored, regardless of the proportion of Native ancestry, demonstrating the law's discriminatory enforcement. The video details how Walter Pleer, who oversaw Virginia's Bureau of Vital Statistics, implemented the law by maintaining lists of families he considered mixed race or striving to pass as white or Native American. Pleer reclassified individuals based on his biased assumptions rather than documented evidence, drastically altering their legal race and restricting basic rights such as marriage, healthcare, and education. Romero highlights the case of Arthur Sorrells, who was initially denied a marriage license because a county clerk doubted her racial purity. She successfully challenged the decision in court by providing extensive genealogical documentation, a process impossible for most families due to cost, destroyed records, or lack of resources. Romero emphasizes the long-term consequences of this law, noting that it destroyed families and communities, forcing some to disappear into whiteness, to survive or to identify as black, when they could not prove white or Native ancestry. The law remained in effect until the landmark Supreme Court case Loving v. Virginia in 1967, which legalized interracial marriage, yet the social damage persisted. Romero also notes how modern DNA testing in the 2000s revealed that many families claiming Pocahontas ancestry lacked the genetic evidence, showing that historical racial classifications were based more on privilege and documentation than actual ancestry. In conclusion, the video demonstrates how the Racial Integrity Act was a tool of social control, enforcing racial hierarchies and protecting elite interests while oppressing marginalized communities. The Pocahontas exception illustrates the arbitrary and biased nature of racial laws, emphasizing that race was often defined by power, wealth, and social connections rather than biology. Romero's research sheds light on this hidden aspect of American history, revealing the deep impact of bureaucratic racism and the erasure of Native American identities. My next news is Tucker Carlson breaks silence on Charlie Kirk assassination. In a recent appearance on the Theo Von Show, conservative commentator Tucker Carlson addressed the ongoing questions surrounding the assassination of Charlie Kirk. Carlson, who has been focused on other projects, acknowledged that he had delayed commenting on the matter, but emphasized the importance of transparency and truth in investigations of high-profile cases. Carlson stated that he does not understand the official story behind Kirk's assassination, arguing that it is indefensible and appears dishonest when defended. Nobody can defend it, and when they defend it, they look like liars. You know why? Because they're lying, he remarked. He stressed the need for a truly rigorous and honest federal investigation, and expressed concern that such an investigation is currently lacking. Carlson criticized government officials, including the FBI, for what he views as systematic failures, citing past controversies such as the handling of the Epstein and Butler investigations. During the discussion, Carlson confirmed some of the claims made by political commentator Candace Owens. Notably, he affirmed that Egyptian-registered aircraft had been tracking Erica Kirk, Charlie Kirk's widow, over several years in multiple locations worldwide. Additionally, Carlson acknowledged that there was a disproportionately high number of foreign-registered cell phones present at the event of Kirk's assassination. While he refrained from speculating on the significance of these findings, he stressed that they are factual and should not be ignored in any investigation. Carlson highlighted the importance of open-minded investigation in journalism, science, and law enforcement. He argued that investigators should follow all leads, regardless of how unusual they appear. He also raised concerns about foreknowledge of the assassination, pointing to social media posts predicting Kirk's death prior to the event. Carlson argued that these posts indicate that some individuals had advanced knowledge of the incident, and he suggested that these people should be questioned thoroughly by authorities. Throughout the conversation, Carlson repeatedly praised Candace Owens, asserting that he trusts her more than the average Department of Justice official or the FBI. He described Owens as someone whose intent appears pure and who provides information in the absence of reliable government transparency. Carlson stressed that responsibility lies with the authorities, not podcasters or commentators, for ensuring justice is served and public confidence in law enforcement is maintained. In conclusion, Carlson's comments underscore a broader concern about transparency and accountability in high-profile investigations. He advocates for an approach rooted in open-minded investigation, rigorous fact-finding, and public reporting of evidence to restore trust in institutions. While he does not claim to have all the answers, Carlson calls for systemic scrutiny and a commitment to uncovering the truth. His discussion with Theo Von brings renewed attention to the circumstances surrounding Charlie Kirk's assassination and the ongoing debates about government accountability, investigative rigor, and the role of independent commentators in filling informational gaps. My next news is Pentagon deploys generative AI for warfare, a dystopian leap. In a recent episode of the Kyle Kulinski Show on Secular Talk, concerns were raised about the Pentagon's introduction of generative artificial intelligence, AI, for military purposes. Kulinski discussed the broader implications of AI, emphasizing the dangers posed when technology is managed by powerful individuals lacking foresight and accountability. Kulinski began by highlighting a long-standing observation: those in positions of political and corporate power often overestimate their intelligence. He argued that leaders running the world's most influential organizations frequently exhibit self-interest, dishonesty, and incompetence, creating a precarious environment as advanced technologies like AI become integrated into decision-making. Kulinski warned that, much like social media, AI may exacerbate societal divisions and worsen, rather than improve global outcomes. Central to the discussion was a recent report by Jessica Burbank revealing that the U.S. Department of War has officially adopted a Google-developed generative AI tool, Gemini Enterprise. According to Burbank, a memo circulated to all Department of War employees outlined that AI will streamline processes, enhance research capabilities, and assist in analyzing video and imagery at unprecedented speed. The memo, authored by Pete Hext, framed AI as a transformative tool critical to maintaining American military superiority. Kolinsky, however, criticized the memo's language as unclear and indicative of naive enthusiasm by officials he considers dangerously uninformed. Kolinsky expressed deep concern about AI being deployed in more contexts, citing existing examples of its use in Israel for targeting civilians in Gaza. He argued that generative AI creates a legal loophole for accountability, allowing officials to disclaim responsibility for lethal decisions by claiming AI dictated the targets. This, Kolinsky warned, could normalize the use of AI in committing war crimes while evading legal consequences. Further skepticism was directed at the broader AI industry. Kolinsky shared personal anecdotes demonstrating AI's unreliability, noting that generative AI frequently fabricates information when uncertain, a phenomenon known as hallucinations. In his experience, AI failed to correctly identify podcast details, repeatedly providing false information despite repeated attempts. This demonstrated to Kolinsky that current AI models are neither infallible nor ready for autonomous decision-making in critical scenarios, yet they are being positioned as central tools in war. The economic and social implications of AI adoption. He argued that AI threat
It's coming to face it, making and breaking, creating bigger the thoughts, getting better. I'm taping, frustrated by the circulation of the way things are going. But I gotta keep control, let's make a power move for showing how I hold on in this roller coaster, break out of chains. See a difference that is coming first, I get out of the pain. There are obstacles in life and I've been seeing them before. The problems I will conquer like the strongest wins the war. Proceeding this meaning of being, I'm seeing this evening. Omit that the leaning, I'm preaching and bragging the singing. So the reason is clearly, I don't give up, do you feel me? If you lose, you go crazy, I'm standing up on my game. And social business bugging, but I'm bursting when I need my money. I'll be there on some business that can turn into somebody. I will be that somebody that's getting better in time. Be the pigeon in the sky, left the troubles then behind.
Fly away now, it's like a pigeon in the gutter. He had a bucket wing, but he don't wanna be a sucker. Fly away now.
If you don't learn it, I don't bother. But when the wounds are healed, he flies away from the gutter. Fly away now.
He's like a pigeon in the gutter. He had a bucket wing, but he don't wanna be a sucker. Fly away now.
If you don't learn it, I don't bother. But when the wounds are healed, he flies away from the gutter.
Fly away from the trouble, but still ready to rumble. My wings gotta grow so I can fly over the jungle. 60 million ways to die, niggas and rambles. I wanna be famous, but it's stuck in a circle. I hate the stupid store with my pocket looking ugly. Hit the dance floor with my muscles looking ugly. Cause my phone's fast, otherwise it's a mess. Money coming in, get some shit up on my chest. Furious, Bob blow, the kick so blessed. Once upon a time, I dream of making money fast. Rubber band, no wildin', going on Long Island. Guap my pilot, making me violent. I see real soldiers acting like hooligans. Real hooligans doing the dead hammer dance. On your face, you can't fly away. Black full of violence, judge push you away. For 42 years, a lot of blood, sweat and tears. Niggas never say cheese when my
Fly
wings.
away
Now, he's like a pigeon in the gutter. He had a bucket wing, but he don't wanna be a sucker. Fly away now.
If you don't learn it, I don't bother. But when the wounds are healed, he flies away from the gutter. Fly away now.
He's like a pigeon in the gutter. He had a bucket wing, but he don't wanna be a sucker. Fly away now.
If you don't learn it, I don't bother. But when the wounds are healed, he flies away from the gutter. Prepared all the better things will come one day. Then I'm gonna spread my wings and I will fly away. In the future with no sorrow, maybe that will be tomorrow. But the most important is that the stay the same, Ricardo. Every face is like a page, so your life is a book. Man, I got a great story. I'm living for the good, so when I'm closing up this chapter, another one begin. I hope that this will be a good one. Keep on rapping and we'll say that I will make the rotation. You're waiting for a sensation. I'm chasing young generation of hip-hop rock entertainment. The nation fake reputation is great, and what they are saying is magic. What are you making? It's for the people, I'm saying. A lot of things are gonna happen, so our God is so strong. When I'm solving up the problems, maybe one day we'll be.
wachten lang, man, is niks te zijn. Ik breng de Faya als de makers, het cherubijn. Kill spit de Faya, maar het is niet als de main. Gobber op te zijn, wat ik raak wordt de main. Spit Faya blijft ziek en hij blijft flame. Sinds Jimboy tijd was op het fucking plane. Ik flow als de rain, man, ik flow als de Korant heen. Mensen worden panja overal waar ik aan leen. Zurie als een zijn en dat voor elke fucking zween. Pijn, geen schijn, ik werk je binnen als een leen. Check mijn krachtlijn, ik weet ik maak je chagrijn. Ik ben de man, ja, de baas op jouw vesteen. Check jezelf, want je doet als van kan. Check jezelf, want je doet als zang kan. Check jezelf, want je doet als pan pan. Check jezelf, want je doet als want zomaar lul zal ik gewoon moeten klissen. Geen fucking tijd om te lopen kissen bissen. Ik was de kanissen, klek de loopkissen. Maar chat die ligt klaar en dan doe ik om bloed te wissen. Zomaar lul zal ik gewoon moeten klissen. Geen fucking tijd om te lopen kissen bissen. Ik was de kanissen, klek de loopkissen. Doen kills als bitches, riskeer ik hechtenissen. Ja, kills die willen deze mogen die gedachten wissen. Zomaar lul zal ik gewoon moeten klissen. Volwassen motherfuckers doen gewoon als mee bewissen. Je zou bijna denken dat die kills zitten pissen. Check jezelf, want je doet als van kan. Check jezelf, want je doet als zang kan. Check jezelf, want je doet als pan pan. Check jezelf, want je doet als check jezelf, want je doet als. Ja man, ik chill overal, rondje te spijkenissen. Wie respect verliest, zal ik zijn gedachten opfrissen. Wie risico wil nemen, moet zelf beslissen. Zelfs als het moet, klek de loopkissen. Ik reageer op jou, al mijn fucking hechtenissen. Wie wil mag gissen, slijpt als bitches. Ze denken veel te zijn, maar
Our motivation is to spread the need of message across the nation. Waiting for so long for the recreation. To get the wrong ideas, pay attention. We stay patient. Our motivation. I'm fast sending to the motherland. While I still live in the first land, worry damn in Amsterdam. Damn, try to stop a nigga for eating. Revolutionary lyrics from the E-list lyricists. We understand the top 10 of the hottest MCs. Understand I won't lose my motivation. Even though a lot of stress and complications. Try to do the right thing like Spike Lee. Even better than only the strong survive. We became survival, suicidal. Niggas so psycho. Shots since you left, you fucking idol. We born the fucking window, yeah. That's where Amsterdam get the whole style from. The first cocaine industry. Enterprise coming very, very soon. Got the industry on like a better hold out. It's a spread and need a message across the nation. Waiting for so long for the recreation. Go get the room and just pay attention. We stay patient. Our motivation is to spread and need a message across the nation. Waiting for so long for the recreation. To get the room and just pay attention. We stay patient. Our motivation blow up and experience the ride. I tell you that we blow up like the 9/11 fly. But dudes getting stupid when they think they're gonna mess up my business. But I will put them in the stress cause I always keep it going. Just keeping it breathing. I say it like the Nike commercial. Just do it. Now that's the motivation and I'm the living proof. I gotta keep on moving. My advice, you do it too. If you're feeling it's not working, then think about the price. All the looters falling down, all the winners gonna rise. First the frustration and then the celebration. What you want is what you get. Now that's the motivation. Our motivation is to spread and need a message across the nation. Waiting for so long for the recreation. Don't get the wrong and then just pay attention. We stay patient. Our motivation is to spread and need a message across the nation. Waiting for so long.
That the presence of bots does not imply that Fuentes lacks a genuine. 20 to 50% of Fuentes followers are automated. The commentator still maintains a sizable, real following that exerts tangible influence within Republican and conservative circles. Kolinsky warned against overinterpreting the bot activity as evidence that the far-right movement is entirely fabricated, emphasizing that Fuentes' reach is augmented but not solely defined by these tactics. Nick Fuentes' audience inflated by foreign bot farms. In a recent episode of the Kyle Kolinsky Show on Secular Talk, Kyle Kolinsky examined reports suggesting that a significant portion of far-right commentator Nick Fuentes' online audience is artificially inflated through foreign bot activity. The discussion focused on the scope, mechanisms, and implications of these manipulations for U.S. politics. Kolinsky began by contextualizing the issue. While Fuentes has attracted attention as a white nationalist and Holocaust denier, a substantial part of his online engagement is reportedly generated by automated accounts originating in countries such as India, Pakistan, Nigeria, Malaysia, and Indonesia. These accounts, Kolinsky explained, function as bot farms, coordinating retweets and engagement in real time to create the illusion of a highly active and influential following. The exposure of this manipulation was made possible by X's, formerly Twitter, location tools, which reveal the geographic origins of active accounts. The primary source for Kolinsky's report was the New York Post, a right-leaning outlet, which cited analysis from the Network Contagion Research Institute, NCRI, a nonprofit that studies extremism online. NCRI found that Fuentes' viral posts often outperform accounts with exponentially larger follower counts due to algorithmic amplification driven by coordinated bot activity. In one analysis, roughly 50% of early retweets on Fuentes' posts originated from foreign accounts, predominantly in regions unconnected to his political messaging, highlighting the orchestrated nature of the engagement. Kolinsky stressed that the presence of bots does not imply that Fuentes lacks a genuine audience. While he estimated that 20 to 50% of Fuentes followers are automated, the commentator still maintains a sizable, real following that exerts tangible influence within Republican and conservative circles. Kolinsky warned against overinterpreting the bot activity as evidence that the far-right movement is entirely fabricated, emphasizing that Fuentes' reach is augmented but not solely defined by these tactics. The episode also explored the feedback loop created by bot amplification. Coordinated engagement inflates the perceived popularity of Fuentes' posts, which in turn attracts mainstream media attention. This coverage further legitimizes his influence, creating a cycle in which artificial metrics reinforce real-world recognition. NCRI's research suggests that Fuentes himself coordinates much of this amplification, issuing real-time commands for retweets, demonstrating a strategic approach to enhancing visibility and impact online. Kolinsky concluded with a broader perspective, contextualizing Fuentes' reach within public opinion. National polls indicate that only 6% of Americans hold a favorable view of Fuentes, and over 60% of the population is unfamiliar with him. Despite the broad amplification and media reinforcement, his overall influence remains limited relative to mainstream political figures. Notably, he receives higher favorability among non-white demographics than among white Americans, an outcome Kolinsky described as counterintuitive, given Fuentes' extremist positions. In summary, while Fuentes has leveraged foreign bot farms to artificially boost his online presence, he retains a real audience that contributes to his political impact. The episode highlighted the dual reality. Fuentes' visibility is inflated through automated amplification, yet he remains a consequential figure within conservative media and the far-right ecosystem. Kolinsky emphasized the importance of distinguishing between manipulated metrics and genuine influence when assessing online political movements. My next news is, Tariq Nasr debates a Mayo mythologist about Black Aboriginal history. Source: Tariq Radio/YouTube. Tariq Nasr discusses Black indigenous populations in the Americas. Source: YouTube, Tariq Radio. On a recent episode of Tariq Radio, Tariq Nasr engaged in a lively debate with a Mayo mythologist regarding the origins of Black indigenous populations in the Americas. The discussion focused on the controversial concept of foundational Black Americans, FBA, which Nasr defines as a distinct group formed through ethnogenesis. According to Nasr, this group emerged from the interactions between African-descended populations brought to the Americas through the transatlantic slave trade and pre-existing indigenous people who were classified as Negro by colonial authorities. Nasr cited historical accounts from early European explorers, claiming that these explorers consistently documented the presence of black-skinned indigenous people across the Americas. He referenced archaeological findings such as Luzia woman from Brazil, whose reconstruction indicates African phenotypes, to support his argument. Nasr also cited the work of 19th-century scientists and authors, including Von Wood, who documented figurines and records depicting black-skinned inhabitants of Asian America. According to Nasr, these accounts, combined with historical misclassification of people by colonial authorities, demonstrate that Black indigenous populations existed long before African slaves were brought to North America. The Mayo mythologist challenged these claims by emphasizing the well-documented importation of African slaves to North America and the role of Native American tribes, particularly the so-called 5 civilized tribes, in enslaving African peoples. He argued that contemporary African American populations are predominantly descendants of these African slaves, with some admixture from Native Americans and Europeans. The mythologist also questioned Nasr's reliance on early European reports and argued that phenotype-based assessments are insufficient for establishing historical identity. A central point of contention in the debate was the reliability of DNA testing. Nasr argued that genetic testing fails to capture the full diversity of indigenous and African-descended populations due to migratory patterns, assimilation, and the dissolution or recombination of many tribal groups over time. He maintained that, because of this, official documentation and oral histories are critical to understanding the origins of foundational Black Americans. His opponent countered that genetic evidence, combined with historical records, provides a more reliable framework for understanding ancestry. The debate highlighted broader tensions in African American historiography between alternative identity-based narratives and conventional scholarly approaches. Nasr's argument emphasizes the need to consider overlooked histories and the complex processes through which distinct cultural and genetic identities emerged in the Americas. Meanwhile, his opponent underscored the importance of verifiable evidence, cautioning against over-reliance on anecdotal or speculative accounts. Ultimately, the discussion brought to the fore questions about historical recognition, the interpretation of early accounts, and the ways in which marginalized groups' histories are constructed and remembered. While consensus was not reached, the exchange illustrates ongoing debates over the origins of African-descended populations in the Americas and the complex interplay of indigenous, African, and European lineages that shaped early American society. My next news is, Bianca Graulau video, How the US and France Ruined Haiti. Bianca Graulau's video, How the US and France Ruined Haiti, provides a compelling, critical perspective on the historical and ongoing exploitation of Haiti by foreign powers. Through a chronological narrative, Graulau challenges the commonly accepted portrayal of Haiti as merely a failed state, plagued by poverty, violence, and political instability. Instead, she foregrounds the historical context of systemic extraction and foreign interference, emphasizing how Haiti's struggles are rooted in centuries of colonialism, predatory debt, and imperialist intervention. The video begins by recounting Haiti's unique position as the first Black republic in the world, born out of the successful revolt of enslaved Africans against French colonial rule in Saint-Domingue in 1804. Graulau highlights the severe punishments and brutality endured by enslaved populations, noting that many had a life expectancy of only 3 years upon arrival. This framing challenges simplistic narratives of Haitian dysfunction by underscoring the extraordinary resilience and agency of the Haitian people. A central focus of the video is France's imposition of a massive independence debt on Haiti, effectively demanding reparations to former colonial masters. Graulau emphasizes that Haiti had to borrow from French banks at high interest rates to pay this debt, a process that drained national resources for over a century. She further illustrates how this debt not only impoverished Haiti but also enriched French institutions, linking the debt to the construction of iconic French landmarks such as the Eiffel Tower. This historical context demonstrates how economic exploitation has been foundational, rather than incidental, to Haiti's systemic challenges. The video also examines U.S. intervention, particularly during the early 20th century and the occupation from 1915 to 1934. Graulau details how U.S. forces seized Haitian gold, controlled national finances, imposed constitutions favoring foreign business interests, and enforced low wages for Haitian laborers. Through historical examples such as General Smedley Butler's candid admission of exploiting Haiti for American corporate profits, Graulau exposes the deliberate nature of U.S. economic imperialism. Graulau then connects historical exploitation to contemporary political and economic dynamics, including the repeated coups against President Jean-Bertrand Aristide and ongoing interference in Haitian governance. She highlights how U.S. and French interests continued to shape Haiti's economic policies, labor regulations, and land ownership, often undermining local sovereignty. Additionally, Graulau links these structural interventions to modern crises, including migration issues, poverty, and political instability, demonstrating continuity between historical exploitation and present-day challenges. Critically, Graulau's video excels in connecting historical context to contemporary realities, emphasizing structural and systemic causes rather than attributing Haitian struggles solely to domestic failings. However, the narrative occasionally simplifies complex geopolitical dynamics, such as internal Haitian political divisions, local corruption, and regional factors, which could have enriched the analysis. Nonetheless, the video effectively challenges mainstream narratives, urging viewers to critically interrogate media representations and recognize the historical patterns of exploitation and intervention that have shaped Haiti. In conclusion, Bianca Graulau's video provides a historically grounded, critical lens on Haiti's enduring struggles, foregrounding foreign intervention as a key determinant of the nation's challenges. By emphasizing systemic exploitation from colonial and modern powers, the video reframes Haiti's history and contemporary crises, offering a powerful corrective to conventional portrayals of failure and chaos. My next news is Rump pushes for CNN sale amid Warner Brothers Discovery bids. December 12, 2025 source. The Young Turks. Former President Donald Trump has publicly insisted that CNN, a subsidiary of Warner Brothers Discovery, WBD, should be sold as part of ongoing media acquisition negotiations. Trump criticized the network's current leadership, calling them dishonest and a disgrace, and suggested that he might be involved in decisions regarding the sale. Currently, there are 2 competing bids for WBD. Netflix aims to acquire only the studio and entertainment properties. Paramount, backed by Trump ally Larry Ellison, seeks to acquire all of WBD, including CNN and other cable networks, in a deal valued at over $108 billion. Paramount argues their bid is more likely to receive regulatory approval compared to Netflix's offer. Analysts note that Trump's insistence on including CNN may be strategic. Adding CNN and other cable assets increases the size and cost of the deal, potentially discouraging Netflix and positioning Paramount as the likely buyer. Observers also highlight Ellison's history of using media acquisitions to promote pro-Israel perspectives, citing prior changes at CBS News under his ownership. Critics argue that Trump and his allies' involvement in media acquisitions undermines journalistic independence and prioritizes political influence over public interest. The sale of CNN, if it proceeds under Paramount or other buyers, could reshape the media landscape while raising questions about political and foreign influence on major U.S. media outlets. My next news is Ibrahim Traoré launches major infrastructure initiative in Burkina Faso. December 12, 2025. Source: Zach Mukasa, English Channel. Burkina Faso's President Ibrahim Traoré has made a significant move to transform national infrastructure, emphasizing development and public service over personal wealth. Speaking on December 10, Traoré handed over 16 pieces of heavy machinery to the country's military engineering corps to accelerate road construction across Burkina Faso. The project is part of the presidential initiative Faso Mabo, aimed at improving the nation's roads and reducing logistical challenges that hinder economic growth. Commentators note that Traoré, at 37 years old, contrasts sharply with many African leaders who prioritize personal luxury over national development. Unlike some counterparts, he does not focus on expensive cars or private villas but invests in infrastructure that benefits the people. The president's approach highlights the critical role of well-maintained roads in economic development. Improved transportation networks allow farmers, artisans, and businesses to move goods efficiently, reducing costs and creating broader economic opportunities. Political analysts also note that Traoré's engagement with the military in development projects strengthens the perception of the army as a contributor to national progress, rather than solely a defense institution. His hands-on leadership style, respectful interaction with subordinates, and focus on practical development are being cited as examples of transformative African leadership. Observers liken his approach to that of John Pombe Magufuli of Tanzania, who prioritized road construction and national infrastructure over personal gain, achieving measurable improvements in economic efficiency and connectivity. Traoré's initiative underscores a growing narrative that Africa's challenges often stem not from lack of resources, but from governance and leadership priorities. His actions suggest a model of development-focused leadership that could influence future governance in the region. My next news is Benin coup attempt. Context, causes, and regional implications. Source: The Alpha House Date. December 12, 2025. A recent attempted coup in Benin highlights the growing tension in West Africa over governance, foreign influence, and generational change. Analysts say the event must be understood within Benin's complex historical and political context. Historical background: Benin, formerly known as Dahomey, gained independence in 1960. Its early politics were heavily influenced by ethnic divisions, with power often shared among major groups, including the Bariba, Yoruba, and Fan. Since independence, Benin has experienced multiple coups, including in 1963, 1972, and significant political shifts under leaders like Matthew Kerekou, who declared a Marxist-Leninist single-party state in 1972 and renamed the country Benin in 1975. The transition to multi-party democracy began in 1990, following the collapse of the Berlin Wall. Presidents like Boni Yayi and Patrick Talon later consolidated power, often centralizing control over government institutions and extending term limits. Causes of the recent coup attempt. Observers argue that the coup was not driven solely by personal ambition but by structural dissatisfaction. Factors include generational frustration. Many African countries have very young populations, with averages between 19 and 22 years. Youth feel excluded from political decision-making and see elections as ineffective in bringing meaningful change. Perceived foreign influence. President Talon is considered closely allied with French interests, raising concerns about sovereignty and national autonomy. Eroded institutions. Legislative, judicial, and private sectors have been weakened, reducing checks and balances and fueling discontent within the military. Regional precedent. Recent coups in Burkina Faso, Mali, Guinea, and Niger have inspired elements within Benin's armed forces to see themselves as saviors when the ballot fails to ensure accountability. Why the coup failed? The coup did not succeed because key military leaders failed to seize President Talon, and Nigeria quickly demonstrated a show of force, signaling its readiness to intervene. Analysts also note that internal ethnic loyalties and foreign interests, particularly from France, influenced the outcome. Geopolitical implications. The events in Benin are part of a broader scramble for influence in West Africa. France, feeling its traditional influence waning, has been increasingly desperate to maintain control over former colonies. Meanwhile, African nations are exploring relationships with non-colonial powers such as Russia, China, and Turkey, seeking new partners without historical baggage. Conclusion. The coup attempt reflects deeper systemic issues in Francophone Africa, including generational divides, foreign influence, and institutional weaknesses. While the immediate attempt failed, the underlying tensions suggest that Benin, and similar countries in the region, may continue to experience political instability. Analysts warn that upcoming elections in January and April 2026 could be significantly affected by these dynamics. My next news is, Black man escapes attempted lynching in Delaware. Source, Taylor House Publishing, YouTube. Dover, Delaware. In a harrowing account from 2012, Henry Forum, a black man, survived an attempted lynching by two white men near Silver Lake Park in Dover, Delaware. According to Forum, the men initially approached him under the pretense of discussing personal matters. One of the men, who greeted him with salam, identified him as Muslim. The following morning, while Forum was outside smoking, the attackers forced him at gunpoint into a white Dodge pickup. They drove him to Silver Lake Park, a site linked to at least 5 other unsolved hangings. At the park, Forum was restrained, physically assaulted, and stabbed with a knife. One of the assailants attempted to use a belt to strangle him, and both men tried to overpower him using objects from the truck. During the struggle, Forum discovered the gun was unloaded, which gave him the chance to fight back. He bit one of the attackers, broke free, and fled through a graveyard and into a backyard, escaping their pursuit. Despite witness accounts corroborating his story, authorities reportedly failed to investigate the case seriously. The attackers were never apprehended. This incident highlights ongoing concerns about racially motivated violence and the inadequate response of law enforcement in addressing threats against black individuals. Source, Taylor House Publishing, YouTube. Black man explains how he escaped being lynched by two white men in Delaware. My next news is, WFP calls for greater investment in preparedness after Hurricane Melissa. Source, Caribbean News Global. Date, December 12, 2025. More than 1 month after Hurricane Melissa devastated multiple Caribbean nations, the United Nations World Food Programme, WFP, is urgently calling for increased investment in disaster preparedness and long-term resilience. Speaking from Port-au-Prince, Haiti, Regional Director Lola Castro warned that the crisis is far from over and stressed that the world must not forget the millions still struggling to survive. Hurricane Melissa, a Category 5 storm and one of the strongest ever recorded in the Atlantic, killed more than 80 people and affected roughly 6 million residents across Haiti, Jamaica, Cuba, and the Dominican Republic. According to Castro, Haiti remains the hardest hit, not only due to the storm itself but because the nation was already grappling with deep social and economic instability before the disaster. Gang violence, displacement, and extreme food insecurity have left more than 5.7 million Haitians facing hunger, while 1.4 million are displaced from their homes. The hurricane brought catastrophic flooding to southern Haiti, where approximately 1.2 million people were impacted. Castro recently visited the town of Petit Gove, where the local river overflowed, forcing families to flee their homes in the middle of the night through fast-moving mud and debris. 25 people lost their lives in that community alone. Castro described meeting residents in total distress, many of whom lost their homes, crops, cattle, and loved ones. From the first day after the hurricane, WFP, along with other United Nations agencies, non-governmental organizations, and Haitian authorities, provided immediate food assistance followed by cash transfers. These cash distributions help households purchase essential items according to their own needs. Many women interviewed by Castro said they planned to use the money to buy food, soap, and other urgent necessities. Local youth groups have also mobilized to help rebuild their communities. Their message to the international community was simple but powerful. Please do not forget us. Castro echoed their plea, warning that early media attention has faded even though the humanitarian needs remain enormous. Beyond Haiti, the storm caused severe destruction in western Jamaica and eastern Cuba. In total, WFP has assisted more than 725,000 people across the 4 affected countries. The agency is now shifting its focus toward recovery and rehabilitation. This includes supporting school feeding programs, strengthening government social protection systems, and registering affected families to ensure coordinated assistance. A major lesson from Hurricane Melissa, Castro emphasized, is the importance of anticipatory action. Before the storm made landfall, WFP sent early warning messages to more than 3.5 million Haitians and provided advance cash transfers to over 50,000 vulnerable residents. Food supplies were also repositioned in Cuba to ensure rapid distribution. However, Castro insists that far more investment is needed. Building resilience through tools such as microinsurance for smallholder farmers, disaster simulations, and community-based preparedness is essential in a region where hurricanes and earthquakes strike year after year. According to WFP, $83 million is required to support 1.3 million affected individuals, but only half of the necessary funding has been secured. WFP warns that without sustained global support, food insecurity will continue to deepen, and vulnerable Caribbean communities will remain trapped in a cycle of disaster and recovery. My next news is, China unveils APEC 2026 theme and priorities. Source, Caribbean News Global. Date, December 12, 2025. Senior officials from Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation, APEC member economies gathered in Shenzhen, the dynamic southern coastal innovation hub of China, to begin preparations for the APEC agenda for the coming year. As the host of APEC 2026, China formally introduced its theme, Building an Asia-Pacific Community to Prosper Together. Opening the meeting, China's Deputy Foreign Minister Ma Xiaoshu highlighted the urgent need for unity and coordinated policy action as the region faces rising protectionism, mounting anti-globalization pressures, and sluggish economic growth. Ma warned that these trends have created significant uncertainty, placing serious burdens on regional development. Strengthening cooperation, he argued, is now an urgent and serious test for all APEC economies. Ma also referenced President Xi Jinping's remarks at the APEC Economic Leaders Meeting in Zhangzhou earlier in the year. Quoting Xi, Ma emphasized that China is ready to work with all partners to advance the goal of a shared Asia-Pacific community, promote regional prosperity, and energize practical cooperation in key areas such as the free trade area of the Asia-Pacific, connectivity, the digital economy, and artificial intelligence. China announced 3 central priorities for APEC 2026: openness, innovation, and cooperation. Openness. Ma stressed that openness has been the foundation of Asia-Pacific growth for decades, noting that average tariffs across APEC have fallen from 17% to 5%, with 2026 marking the 20th anniversary of the free trade area of the Asia-Pacific agenda. He called for renewed support for the multilateral trading system, stronger supply chain resilience, and deeper regional connectivity. Innovation. Ma pointed to rapid technological change, particularly artificial intelligence, as a primary engine for future growth. He urged APEC to deepen cooperation on frontier technologies, expand digital public services, harmonize technological standards, and ensure equitable access to innovation benefits. Highlighting Shenzhen's role as a global technology hub, he noted that China is ready to share its experience with all partners to support the region's innovative development. Cooperation. Ma reaffirmed that cooperation remains vital for the prosperity of the Asia-Pacific. APEC, he said, must strengthen capacity building and collaboration in areas including fiscal policy, food security, energy, small and medium enterprises, transportation, tourism, human resources, and public health, ensuring that no member or community is left behind. Shenzhen, once a small fishing area transformed into one of China's earliest special economic zones, provided an appropriate backdrop for the meeting. The city's economic output has risen from 270 million yuan in 1980 to 3.68 trillion yuan in 2024, with overall trade reaching approximately 4.5 trillion yuan last year. Shenzhen will also host the APEC Economic Leaders Week in November 2026. During the meeting, Ambassador Chan Su, chair of the APEC 2026 Senior Officials Meeting, unveiled the official APEC logo. Inspired by Shenzhen's nickname, the City of Palm, the logo features 21 interwoven feathers, symbolizing the 21 APEC economies, rising together towards shared prosperity. APEC 2026 will also mark the first 5-year review of the Aotearoa Plan of Action, a key step toward achieving the APEC 2040 vision of an open, dynamic, resilient, and peaceful Asia-Pacific community. My next news is the article U.S. Re-Sanction Maduro's Nephews and Backers, published by Caribbean News Global on December 12, 2025, reports on the United States government's renewed sanctions against figures connected to Nicolas Maduro's administration in Venezuela. The U.S. Department of State announced measures targeting 4 individuals, 6 companies, and 6 vessels linked to drug trafficking, corruption, and the financial networks that sustain Maduro's disputed regime. The central focus of this renewed pressure is on 3 nephews of Maduro, 2 of whom were previously convicted of narcotics trafficking, later granted clemency during a prisoner exchange, and have since allegedly returned to criminal activities. By re-sanctioning these actors, the United States aims to isolate what it calls an illegitimate government and curtail its financial resources. The report highlights that Maduro is described by the U.S. as the leader of the foreign terrorist organization Cartel de los Soles, a label that frames the Venezuelan state itself as entangled in organized crime. Additionally, the sanctions extend beyond individuals, reaching into the Venezuelan oil sector. Several shipping companies and vessels are identified as blocked property, demonstrating the U.S. government's strategy of disrupting economic activities that could generate revenue from Maduro's network. The article quotes State Department spokesperson Tommy Pigott, who stresses that Washington seeks to eliminate narco-trafficking threats throughout the hemisphere, presenting these sanctions as essential to regional security. From a critical perspective, the article presents the U.S. position straightforwardly, but leaves several underlying issues unexplored. First, the heavy reliance on official U.S. statements means the narrative largely reflects Washington's framing of events. There is little reference to independent investigations, regional analysts, or Venezuelan civil society voices that could verify or contextualize accusations. The report does not explore whether these sanctions have historically succeeded in weakening Maduro's grip on power, nor does it discuss their humanitarian impact on ordinary Venezuelans, an issue many international observers have raised repeatedly. Second, the prisoner exchange mentioned, wherein the nephews received clemency in 2022, deserves deeper scrutiny. Their return to criminal activity, as asserted by U.S. officials, raises questions about the effectiveness and moral risks of political prisoner swaps involving individuals convicted of severe crimes. However, the article does not interrogate the political motivations behind the exchange or the potential diplomatic consequences. Furthermore, the sanctions strategy reflects broader geopolitical tensions. Venezuela has increasingly aligned itself with China, Russia, Iran, and other countries seeking alternatives to U.S.-dominated financial systems. Yet the report does not situate the sanctions within this global rivalry, which influences both Venezuela's resilience and Washington's persistent pressure. Understanding these dynamics is essential to evaluating whether sanctions can realistically change the behavior of a regime that has survived years of economic isolation. Overall, the article provides clear factual information about the newly announced sanctions, but lacks deeper regional analysis or alternative viewpoints. A more balanced report would examine the sanctions' historical outcomes, the humanitarian cost, and the broader geopolitical context shaping U.S.-Venezuela relations. As a reading source, it is useful for tracking official policy development. Must supplement it with broader perspectives to fully understand the implications. My next news is in the next video. I am Remi Djalis with Black African Diaspora World News from the Netherlands, Europe.